And today I am here with Lisa from ADU Gurus. And today we have an amazing topic. I'm super excited to talk about it. We are talking about how to increase your property value and your home. It is such a huge topic. We have so many clients that come in and they might have a single family home and they're trying to figure out, how do I make my house more valuable?
Sure.
And especially in San Diego, the prices of homes are more, but sometimes they want to add some income, sometimes they want to do different things like that. But there's some restrictions and regulations and different things that I wanted to talk about this time. We did have an interview with you a few weeks ago that went viral. People loved it, and it was the basics of ADUs. But today we're really going to talk about those rules, regulations, and some things to know when you want to get into really doing that. So
Great.
Thank you again for coming.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's get into it right away. What type of ADUs or what type of homes can we do to be able to increase the property of our home?
Well, there's two types to jump right into it. You can put in a manufactured home,
Okay.
or you can put in a stick-built home.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between the two?
So a stick-built, in the industry, we use the term stick-built to speak to ground-up construction with framing and lumber, and a manufactured, of course, is built off-site and it's brought to the location. The foundation can be created for it, and the home brought on site and then set on the foundation.
Is there a more cost-effective way of doing that? What's the best way to go about it?
Well, there's for the manufactured.
For
either
between
one?
like a stick build and a manufactured, what would be the most cost-effective way?
Good point. So the perception is that modular or manufactured is a more cost-effective way to go. But sometimes when you go to the factories, and by the time you put in exactly what you want to put in, you want those fancy cabinets, you want the roof to match your roof,
Right.
It could be a certain material. By the time you pick that out, it could be a little bit less than a stick-built. So stick-built or site-built, we can go from the ground up. It's going to be a little bit more expensive.
Okay.
So sometimes people choose the manufactured in the interest of expediency.
So I know that we talk about a lot of times with my clients, because we really specialize kind of in the lending side and really trying to figure out financing and different things. And I know that there's kind of a difference in like the way that these homes are put on
That's
foundation,
correct.
right?
Yep.
Could you kind of expand a little bit on that and
Sure.
explain to our audience how that works and what to look for?
I think you're thinking of the 433A certification. So what a 433A certification, it only pertains to a manufactured property. And that means when the manufactured is set on the foundation on your property, that it is tied down. And when it's done that way, it is issued a 433A certification through HCD. And when you do that, it becomes a permanent foundation. So a stick-built, of course, is a permanent foundation. It's built from the foundation up. And when it's placed on the foundation and tied down properly with a 433A certification, it's the same thing. It has a permanent foundation.
That's great. And we wanted to kind of get into some of like the government regulations and some of the things that they do. So could you explain to us some of those regulations that the government has and how that would pertain to somebody when they're looking at which one they would like to do?
So a lot of jurisdictions are cities. So your city may not allow a non-permanent foundation. So if you had the idea to bring a manufactured in, set it down in your backyard, put some skirting around it to match the house, but underneath there's no permanent foundation, that's not allowed. So it's very particular jurisdictions allow that. The city of San Diego allows it, but most jurisdictions do not. So you have to employ the 433A certification in order to be able to place a manufactured in most jurisdictions in the county of San Diego, in the entire county of San Diego.
So I had a client call me the other day, and he was buying a property, and this property had two 433A certifications on it. He was like, can I get financing for this?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? Would you kind of explain what you were able to tell him the other day and get into that? Because I think that's really important information for folks to know.
So there's a couple of, and that's one of the things you asked me, Christina, too, is that if a property that has a primary residence on it that was stick built and it was site built and you had some extra land and you brought in a manufactured home, to have an additional residence there, and you never put a 433A certification on it, that is not real estate.
Okay.
So if it has no if it has no 433A certification, it was never placed on the property as a permanent foundation. Remember that 433A certification is the differentiating factor, and it's filed with HCD, issued by HCD and filed with them. So if you're ever concerned or you want to know if your manufactured home is real estate, you can check with HCD to see if you have the 433A certification. But your client had two 433A certifications, so that meant both of the properties were real estate, and they could enjoy conventional financing.
Yep, absolutely, which is really great, because I think that's a part of it as well, is a lot of folks, when they are buying property and they're looking at these manufactured homes or ADUs, they want to be able to incorporate that in their financing when they're selling it, obviously, and then when they're buying it as well. So I think that's really great.
Yes.
Is there any other great questions that folks ask that you want to make sure that our audience knows as well that maybe I haven't asked you?
I think it's still touching on the same thing, because you're
Okay.
so good at your questions. So I want to make sure I expand a little bit on that. So there's a big trend towards tiny homes, right? Everybody's like, well, I want to get a tiny home and put it on some land, and that's an ADU. And I say, well, an ADU is an accessory to an existing structure. So you can't buy a tiny home and put it on blank land or vacant land, I apologize, and decide that that's an ADU. Remember, an ADU is an accessory. So if you have a home already and you'd like to put an ADU on it, you can use a tiny home as an ADU on your property in the city of San Diego's jurisdiction. So if you're living in the city of San Diego and you want to add a tiny home, it doesn't have to have a permanent foundation, but it doesn't count as real estate. So some appraisers may value it, but it's going to be up to every appraiser any appraiser that comes to your property. Otherwise, they may value it as just like the fifth wheel in your driveway. They're not going to give it any value.
Okay.
And that's huge. If you attach it to the ground with a 433A certification, which is cost effective, it's not that much more to the process to place something on a permanent foundation. Because even on a non-permanent foundation, you still have to run utilities to it. You still have to tie it into sewer. You still have to add electricity. You have to do all of those things whether you tie it down permanent or not. So go that extra step, especially with a professional in real estate like Christina, who knows that there's no value in one that's not,
Right.
and you've gone and done all of the utilities to it. You want to just maximize your your return on your investment. So it's the best way to do it is do the 433A certification if you were going with manufactured.
I know that there's been some new laws and regulations around this lately. I know some people are putting ADUs on and even splitting their properties and doing different things like that. Could you explain
Touch on the SB 9?
a little bit? Yes, I would love that.
Senate Bill 9 went into law January 1st, 2022, as all new laws go into effect on the first of the year. And SB 9 was a very popular law. It's written a little bit more broad, and when I say that, that means each city that codifies it or turns it into their own municipal code can either leave the minimum allowances that the state mandated, or they can make more. But most of them have stuck to the minimum, and that is that you can split your lot. If you have a postage stamp size lot, 3,200 square feet, you could split the lot if it makes sense. It has to be split no less than 60-40. Most people think 50-50, but I don't want to get into the minutia. But the fact of the matter is you can split your lot and actually have two parcels, and you can build an ADU in a house or on a vacant side, and you can build an ADU on the existing side. So now you have 4 properties, 2 parcels. A lot of people are avoiding that, and they're just building 3 extra ADUs on their property. But to do that, some cities are mandating that if you have a house on a property and you want to add the maximum amount of units according to SB 9, you may have to add another primary residence and then do 2 ADUs. So it gets pretty complicated. And finally, I'll say that the difference also is on the processing side. Okay. Prior to SB 9, if you're a developer, and if you own a home, you're now a developer, by the way. You're not just, if you own a single family home, you're a developer. And you want to take that process to the city to say, I want to split my lot. Before, you would have to go through a big process. You had to go through, you get your civil engineer, your survey, everything done, all your paperwork done, go to the city. The city would say, well, Public Works, what do you think? And all the departments had a say in your lot split. And then it would go to the planning commission who would vote on it, and then subsequently it would be approved or denied. Now the process is much easier. The city has 60 days to get back to you. There's no planning commission involvement, meaning that it's ministerially approved or denied. So you have to go through all of these, you used to have to jump through all of these hoops to get this done, and they've taken back the bureaucracy on the process and allowed the homeowner to really maximize the use of the property in a decent amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that because I think that's a big question that a lot of our
It's huge.
listeners are really wanting to know,
Yeah.
and especially with the rules and regulations and trying to figure out what's going on with
Yes.
that. We all want to be able to maximize our investment, right? If we're buying a single family home, adding maybe the ADU, and being able to understand the laws
Sure.
around that. So thank
Yeah.
you so much. You
You're
covered
so
some
welcome.
great information today.
I'm happy to help.
If someone, one of our listeners wanted to get a hold of you just to ask questions, because you are always so good about answering and
Sure.
just really giving that information, how can they get a hold of you?
You can reach me one of two ways. Lisa at ADU Gurus, that's ADU and Gurus with an S.com, or call me at 760-313-1000.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
You're
we really
welcome.
appreciate you. And again, this is Christina at San Diego Real Estate Live. Please like, follow, and share, and we will see you on the other side.
Thanks.
Bye.